If you have wood that has like a nice sapwood, rosewood was the one that's in the picture that I've done. It's got a nice sapwood with cherry, different color, walnut. It kind of adds a little dimension, obviously like a natural edge bowl. We're not going to have bark on it. You could actually do this and have a bark edge bowl. That's perfectly fine. We're just going to put a little detail on the bowl around the edge, and then we're going to make that detail that's little beads or coves or whatever. I'll tell you, don't do V-cuts because they end up looking like teeth on the edge of the bowl. They're not real attractive. Curves work a little better. So here again, I'm not going to spend too much time. I need to get this out a little farther. This is how precisely I set stuff up. If you have a sapwood and you really want to keep it oriented evenly, then take your time, set it all up. If you have a log that has bigger sapwood on the top or the bottom, you might want to, or an offset pith with which was bigger sapwood on one side or the other, use that to your advantage if it's shaped longer or whatever. You want to orient it in the setup so that maybe the thicker part is on one side and that's your bottom, but I'll talk about that. We'll decide which is going to be the bottom and the top. But all right, I'm a little off center there. I'll adjust a tiny bit. We're going to make it round, so it really doesn't matter much. That's close enough. All right, I'm going to do the same OSHA approved startup method that I used. We're done.
So why do you do it?
The end's not cut straight. I don't know if I waited long enough, but no, I didn't. I'll show you. The end, I mean, it really doesn't matter because all I'm going to do is turn it, round it.
Yes.
Okay, see that's not flat, so I can just do it a little bit longer and it will cut that flat, and on a spindle it will make it nice and flat. It'll grab a little bit better. There's not going to be tenons on the ends of this. We're going to turn it around and do tenons a little bit differently. But like I said, it's just a bad Forstner bit. Actually, this one's new and it's pretty sharp. I could probably drill a hole with that one. So doing that, and then we're going to take, like I said, we could just set this up and do it with the bark on, but I'll put a little detail on here. So here again, for a thing that if I was doing a wing bowl or something, I might cut it this way right through here because there's a little bit of a limb there. That might be something in the side of the bowl that might show up neat, but we can see what we want to do. Just look at the log, decide on the design. You know, evaluate the log, figure out what you want to do. I didn't sharpen all my gouges, but we'll go forward. I've got one or two left that should be relatively sharp. A lot of this is just going to take some bark off. So here again, shield down, a little bit of speed. And these are going to be just little cuts to just clear the wood off. Same thing, I don't just normally just rip the bark off and stuff. I'll just take little 1/4 inch cuts. And each one of these is a bevel supported cut. When I do my thin stem goblets, when I do my vases, you've seen this kind of just repeated, and I can get a little bit bigger cut. There was conversation about this being Bradford pear. Personally, I think it is. It could be Bradford pear. I could be nice. I just want to kind of make it relatively parallel. It's not quite. I'm looking down the ways. I can see past the thing, and I look down the back edge. And I really don't have to make it super smooth. I just want to make sure I get all the bark off. Take a look. Yeah, we're all cleaned off. Pretty good. There's a little limb there. Actually not. Didn't got a little bark there. Clean a little more off. You could use a spindle roughing gouge for this. It's basically spindle oriented grain right now. I'm still not completely round. or not completely parallel. Okay, I'm going to square up the ends. I'm going to go to my other gouge. 60 degrees is kind of hard to get down just because of the angle. I'm way out here. I can go down the side with this and basically just truing up the end. And it doesn't have to be trued up all the way down because all that's going to go away anyway. Larry was really wanting to see this one. This one's kind of a neat little project. I like it because I get to turn more air, as I was saying. All right, I need a tape measure. This is where it gets really complicated. And I do have a pencil. All right, you gotta see how big this is. 7.5 inches. I could cut it down to 7. I could leave it at 7.5. We'll leave it at 7.5 because then my math has to be more complicated. So we find middle is 7.5, 3 3/4, right? All right. So I'm going to make a mark and 2 marks on the side of that. That's going to be the middle. So I'm going to make it easy because I got to split these off, say, in 1/2 inch increments. I'm going to move my 4 over to the center. So now I'm at all my 1/2 inches. I can make some marks. So you know what I did? I just not have to worry about it. So that's not on the end, but it should even up. I mean, you know, it'll be the same off on each end. So you can do whatever you want. Bigger, smaller. We're basically just dividing them up. All right. And I didn't get all the bark off, did I? Nope, still got a little bark. So that's my middle. I just double line that one so I kind of know where the middle is. That will be a little important. All right. Everybody got that? That's simple. I don't have a handout for this one yet. Okay, this wasn't my demo. I didn't come up with this idea. I've kind of changed it around, done a few things, but a good turner, you know, I'm not going to take credit for some things, but a good turner from Florida, from down in Palm Beach area, Gerhard Schwenke. He's a German guy. And he came up with this sort of idea. We've done a lot of these. He does a beautiful job with it, and I really love it. And he said, you know, he's not going to travel around. He doesn't do demos. He's done a couple of Florida symposiums in Utah, but you know, I like to show people this, and he has no problem with this. But this is really neat. We've got that. We're going to do some coves and beads. All my gouges here. This one I can use. All right. So you can do whatever you want. You can make some little coves. You can make, like I said, V-cuts aren't so great, but we're going to basically make, say, just some little roly beads. I'm not going to take too long with them because it's kind of a spindle part, but it gives you practice on your spindle beads and coves. And that's what I was going to tell you too. When I first started turning, my teacher Ron Browning would make me do beads and cove sticks. Beads and coves, beads and coves. Yeah, that's the biggest thing you learn. You do beads with a skew. I learned how to use a skew. I wanted to turn bowls. I wanted to turn boxes. I wanted to turn everything. Well, before I did that, I did beads and coves. 3 beads and cove sticks from 2 inches down to as small as you can do them, and with backhand support and everything until they break. Do another one. Do beads, round it off. Do coves, round it off. Do beads, do coves, da-da. It's scales of the piano. You learn to do the scales before you play the concertos. It's the biggest help I had. I saw Jimmy Clues many times, and we've talked about it. Stuart Batty, Jimmy Clues, all the guys that are really good with tool control have done spindle work and beads and coves. A good friend of mine, North Carolina, was asking me, you know, Rudy, you know, you haven't been turning too good. Do you practice your cuts? I said, yeah, man, beads and coves. You know, I learned how to do it. I'll do beads and coves to warm up. And he goes, oh, Lad, I hate that crap. I can't do those. I'm like, all right, you know, whatever. So we're talking, we're sitting in the bar the next night, and I hear him, he's over there talking to Jimmy Clues. He says, he's kind of loud, he says, Jimmy, he says, you know, you turn really good. Do you practice or anything? Oh yeah, beads and coves, mates, beads and coves. And I hear Victor across the room, damn, man, I don't want to hear that. But it's true. And anything you can do to improve your technique or whatever is, now I do beads better one direction than the other. So I'm going to not be fancy with these. I'm just going to make some, I'm going to round that end off just a little. I'm not going to go too deep on these. I'm not going to get too complicated with them, but you got the idea. We're just going to add some kind of decorative detail, not super complicated. And this is with a bowl gouge. If I wanted to go steeper in there, I'm going to have to use a spindle gouge. And I'm running out of platform. I got to move. And still, I like the tool in my body. I can kind of control this. If you do a bead or something, you're trying to keep a certain dimension. If you put a pencil line on top of there and you never cut the pencil off, well, then you know your bead is going to be the right diameter. So if you cut the pencil line off, you've obviously cut the bead down too far. So I'm kind of looking at the top, just kind of checking a few of these. We're not going to waste too much time with this, but you got the idea. We're just doing some decorative detail. And I want to keep my mark so I know where my center is. On my spindle gouge that I really do a lot of beads with or something, if I'm doing ornaments and stuff, I have a gouge, not as long as that one, but I have a gouge that's about this long, because you don't need all of this in the way. I can hold the gouge like this. I could actually hold a tool by itself and make a bead much easier, because all I want to do is be able to roll it over like that, and especially with small details. So this whole handle thing gets way down in the way if you're trying to really make little tight corners. David Ellsworth has a bead, little spindle gouge that he uses that's actually a ball. It's a knob, like a doorknob. And you just do that to roll beads with, or coves. All right, we're done. Good enough. Okay. So that's all kind of just some decorative edge on there. We're going to figure out where each side is 180 degrees apart. And this is where, if you had a offset pith or a thicker sapwood on one side or the other, you could decide where you want that to be. Here we're a little bit stuck because we have only two orientations, or three. Let's see, wait a minute, four, I mean. Let's see, one. No, just two places, 180 degrees apart. That's kind of nice. If you have multiple indexes, you have to figure out which ones are 180 apart. So it's kind of a little awkward. But with the Powermatic and the Jets, they have this spindle lock is only two positions. So that's bark. I want to get rid of that stuff. There's a little thing there. So that's pretty good. I'm going to just make my center mark. Actually, the tool rest needs to be on the center line of the spindle. So I'm pretty good, pretty close there. I'm locked in there. I'm going to make a line on there, and 180 degrees apart should be a line on there. So that line straight across, yeah, should be all right. Okay, so that's our center. That was our one with our double line. So now we're kind of good with that. So now it gets fun. You know where I'm going with this yet? All right. So which is going to be the rim, which is going to be the base. Either way, I'm going to lose this stuff in here, which is fine. I want to do that. That could be the base. That could be the inside. Let's make this the bottom. So we're going to turn it this way. Yeah, baby. All right, I'm not going to turn this on and do it the way I normally do. I'm just going to smash this into there, and I'm going to try to drive it in really nice and tight. Really nice and tight. I think it normally goes in fairly even. I should have started checking a little sooner, but let's see where we're at. All right, we're good there. Yeah, we're not quite right there. So I'm trying to get my two ends even, relatively so. Pretty good. Not bad. So that keeps the ends of the bowl even, and if you're definitely 180 degrees apart, your valleys are going to be even. So if you indexed one mark off of an indexer, it's going to be crooked. So you can do a lot to orient the grain, you can do a lot to orient sapwood. So, all right, should be good and snug. Good. All right, we're going to put a tenon on this end, and then we're going to turn it around, put it in the chuck, and make a base. You can do them bigger diameter, shorter, and have a vase shape. You can do them longer, and we're going to do sort of a banana bowl shape, just a nice smooth shape like that. And then curve it out. You can make just a base. You can undercut the base considerably. I'm working on a better design to make deeper feet and make it easier. Right now I'll do a base come out, and then I will undercut that base the way I did on the base and stuff, but I have to get way in there with a spindle gouge, and going 1.5 inches deep in a pocket with a spindle gouge gets really kind of a little scary, and to show people how to do that, they're going to destroy a bunch of them. So I'm kind of trying to come up with a better way to do it. So we're working on that. But right now, this is what we're doing. So we're going to cut a tenon on here. I'm going to turn the speed down. Start it up. And it's going to start slinging water. So I'm going to let it sit there for a minute. It usually should balance up good because you're centered. Real nice. That's perfect. I mean, usually it spins up real nice. It's much easier than a wing bowl. You just want to always check stuff, make sure everything's tight. I'm going to let it sling some water out for a while. Might get another rag while I'm here. Might need this. Yeah, it's not going to help for a while. So I'm just going to take some wood off. I'm going to figure out where the edge is. There it is. So there's a lot of wood to take off here. I'm doing the same pull cut that I was doing, kind of cutting on the little lower corner of the gouge. If I want to not, sometimes, that's technically I'm sort of doing a pull cut, they call it, but I could turn around this way and do a push cut, right? I'm pushing it. So there's a little controversy on what that is actually called. I mean, here I'm pushing the cut, and it's the same cut, exactly. But there, you know, we're not going to split hairs on that. I will just say I'm doing a non-bevel supported cut. Now it's side grain. It's regular bowl gouge. This is just like a bowl. If I'd have split that log and it was only this big around, the bowl would be oriented in exactly the same direction. It would be a side grain, face grain, whatever you want to call it, bowl. Side grain, face grain, sort of the same thing. End grain would be if this was turned this direction and I was going into the end grain and it's spindle oriented. It's kind of confusing at first. I was very confused at first. End grain, and it's coming at you. Here's the whole deal. I didn't bring my little diagrams, but with the grain running side grain, you want to cut from the base to the opening, or to the top, from the base to the top in that direction, because the fibers are going this way, and when you cut them, you want one to support the other one as you cut. It's like petting the dog. The dog hairs want to going this way. If you pet this way, it frays them up. So you don't want to go the opposite direction. It's pet the dog that direction, not the opposite way. When you go in, see, now here's where I'm going to confuse you. You go inside the bowl. You guys know this, but she just asked the question, you know, which way the grain is cut. When you go in the bowl, you want to cut from the rim in on face grain or side grain. Same thing. Call it side grain. Because the fibers are going that way, and when you cut in, they're supported. If you cut out, you're digging them up, and you get a rougher cut. On end grain, it's the total opposite. The fibers are running parallel. If you go into them, you're fibering them up. The cut is better coming out. So you cut the opposite direction on end grain, side grain. Now you go to a closed form bowl, it all changes because the fibers are running this way, and you got to go in the bowl, and it's technically the wrong direction going this way because the curve is this way and the fibers are pointed at you. So I won't go into that, but I have a little drawing. So to answer that quick question, now I can get a lot of wood out of here, and I can chip the edges. Some woods will chip really badly, and especially when you're going this fast to kind of clear wood out of here. But I want to finish this up, so I'm not going to take too much time, but I'll see what it looks like on the edge. The speed's pretty quick, but we're still getting big chips out of this side. We'll get chips out of that side and big chips out of that side. But obviously I got to take this all the way up to the rim of the bowl. So I've got a lot of wood to get out of here. I'm going to just go ahead and do it. When I start getting close, I'm going to slow down and go to a sharper, smaller gouge to hopefully eliminate some of that and not destroy that too bad. So right here, if I was doing sapwood, like on the little picture on there, the little feet of that bowl have white sapwood all the way around. So this would be where the sapwood comes from, outside of the rim. So I don't want to take too much out of there if I'm trying to save that sapwood. Or that's where I would have put my thicker sapwood to save it, to be able to use it in the feet. I like that little effect with the bottom of the feet, like a little horse or a dog that has little white booties on. It's raining. I'm not going to do all of this on this side because, as with my wing bowl, when I turn this around, it may not line up just right. And then the thicknesses of my bowl won't be the same. So we're going to see how chippy that is. So it's still pretty chippy on that side. So I need to start finessing a little bit and clean those, kind of make sure we don't lose all of the chips on this. And I'm going to probably go the wrong direction, but with a sharp gouge, I may get less chips than doing a pull cut. Yeah. I can't see. So I just told you about all the rules of how to cut the wood in the right direction, and I am going the wrong direction now. But with a very sharp tool and smooth bevel supported cuts on good wood, that's actually a okay cut. Some woods are going to fray up worse, but that is not too bad, and that little edge is not chipping too bad. I'm going to try to go to a smaller gouge. I think I have...
As long as you do your final cut in the right direction.
Well, yeah, I probably won't even do the final cut. We'll try it. We'll see how it works. And I'm going to try to start in here on instead of doing a scrape cut, I'm going to try to do a bevel supported cut now, going this direction with a freshly pretty sharp gouge. So we're going to see how that works. That's hanging over the rest a little bit much. Let me try to move that in a little closer. That was a little bit of a thick cut. That was about 1/8 of an inch cut. I'm going to take a little bit less. Pick up the cut. Now, I've got a transition line there. If I want to pick that transition up smoothly, I can't start at the transition line. I really need to start ahead of it. So I want to get up here, and there's a camera catching a little bit of this mud, a little bit of this wet stuff coming off here. If I start getting that, I'm starting the cut right there. And if I'm cutting before I hit that line, then I'm obviously going to pick the line up. Let's see what we got. Perfect. Pretty good. One side's perfectly fine. That side's got just a little chip. I do have a nice smooth curve. I'm going to curve it under just a little more, but I'm going to go the wrong way and see if it shows up. Makes a difference. See my peaks and valleys. That's good. Okay, that one is not quite perfect. I'm just not quite on the line. I'm not going to worry about that because that was a pretty smooth cut, so I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm going to try to go this direction. I can see my shape a little better, and I can't get my gouge in there. We're going to do it, and then I may have to recut it on the other side. Tool rest moved. Don't like that. Okay. So there's really not much difference between the two cuts going that direction or whatever. If this is Bradford pear or whatever it is, it turns pretty nice. Now, I didn't sand, I didn't do much to these little things. If you were going to sand them while they're this direction, you can go ahead and sand them, curve them in, do whatever you're going to do, clean the pencil marks off. But if you notice, when I'm finished, I'm only going to have 1/8 of an inch to sand there. So it's going to be pretty close. So there's not a lot to do there. So you could take time to do it now or whatever, or not before you flipped it around. But like I said, I want to try to get this finished up for you guys. Okay, nice little clean cornered tenon, the way we were talking about, and pretty good. I may make the feet smaller than that when I finish it, but so that's kind of where we're going. Yes. Yeah. All right. I got to wipe off a lot of things here in a minute. So, is the camera splattered up too? Yeah, it looks like a little bit, but yeah, this stuff is on the other side for some reason. But that'll help. Yeah, there's a little water, not too bad on that. But Chuck. Two. Yeah.
With that much air, what speed do you like to
That was like about 2,300, I think.
go up to full speed?
We were discussing that. I may go faster at home. I try not to emphasize the speed. If you're Bill Grumbine, another great turner, kind of describes it in one of his videos. What's the right speed? He says, well, if the lathe's not shaking and you're not shaking, everything's okay. So if you're afraid of the speed, turn it down. You will get used to it. I will say in most workshops, every lathe I walk up to that somebody's turning on, I turn it up. And then they're like, whoa! And once they're comfortable with it, it works better. What I was going to say about those pine projects is they are so noisy. I had 15 guys in the class, and when they all started busting slapping quarter-inch pine with bowl gouges, Don Geiger left, went back, came in with earmuffs, and he's like, people are trying to talk to him, he's like, turn it off. What? And he says, this is horrible. And it was all this noise everywhere. It was horrible. So I don't know if I'll do those again, but it's a really good project because the guys really learned once they slacked up, zzz, zzz, you get nice cuts. If you just keep slamming that bevel, it's not what you're supposed to do, and it tells you the stuff is horribly loud. So, but speed-wise, yeah, I like to turn it up a little bit more, and that intermittent cut, it will help the chipped edge. You won't get as much chip the faster it cuts. It's kind of the, I call the old karate chop idea. If you're hitting a piece of board, the guy's not going to go up and break it like this. It's the velocity with which they hit the wood that breaks it. It's like a hurricane blowing a piece of wire around. It's going to drive it into a telephone pole because it's going 250 miles an hour. So the speed makes the cut a little better, I think. So I'm going to loosen this up, put a little tension on it like I did. Snug. And green wood, always check the tightness as you go sometimes, especially before I pull the live center out, because it will shrink up. It may loosen up just a little bit. So be safe and check that. I'm going to put this back around here. Going to set the bowl right next to it. Pretty close. I don't really probably won't have to adjust that, but I'm going to make a couple of clean cuts, make the foot just a little bit smaller, I think, and then go back to just hollowing the inside. Let's see, what was I? 2050. So I'm okay. I'm comfortable. I mean, it's turning pretty quick, and it's not overly out of control. But see, I am a little bit out. That's a little bit. I'm getting a little vibration. So that vibration's from the. I'm going to do a little shear scrape in here, and that will probably just true this side up. I'm going to maybe make these actually a little bit tucked under, a little lower. Bevel. I'm going to make the feet a little longer, the base a little bit longer. I'm just going to tuck the bowl in just a little farther. It's probably not enough out of round or out of whack that it's going to affect the interior shape much. All right, I'm just going to find out the shape just a little bit more. And you can leave little details in here. You can kind of curve it up, make shapes. Basically just a little cove. Slide the bevel back.
I'm just curious, why in this case do you want it rounded where the other ones you were wanting it, Chris?
Oh, the little edge there? Could be either way. Yeah, just a personal thing. This, I'm just going to flow it down in there. You could go in, make it nice and crisp, and make that base just go boom, right into the link, add a little fillet like I did on the base. Yeah, whatever. I was thinking about maybe changing that around a little bit, but I'm going to try to stick with this, make a little banana shape, a little oriental look to it. We're clean here. If you wanted to sand, you could sand just a little bit, but I'm going to leave it with just a clean cut right there. I'm going to do a little bit of shear scrape to blend those, or could use the negative rake scraper right here. Shear scrape, I'll quickly say, I don't think I mentioned this, as comparing the bowl gouge doing a scrape, a shear scrape, and the negative rake scraper. We have a negative rake scraper that has two bevels, bevel on the top, bevel on the bottom, grind on the bottom, creates a burr on the top. Got it. A bowl gouge, a bevel inside, which is the flute, a bevel outside, which is the bevel, grind on the outside, raises a burr on the inside. Roll it over into a shear scrape mode, which is this camera picking up the, looking, I want to look straight into the end of the gouge if I can. Is that fairly good? Okay, because you're looking at this edge, that bevel's coming up. Is that kind of showing up at all?
Yep.
Okay. As I roll this over and the top edge almost touches, okay, Les is shaking his head. You see what's happening? That is now my top bevel pointed down with the burr on the top, and it's the exact same thing as a negative rake scraper. So that's why it shear scrapes so well. Well, you add the shear to it, instead of being perfectly flat, I shear it down. Now it's a negative rake scraper being used in a shearing mode, and instead of my finger not getting cut like this, if I slide my finger that way, it's going to cut it nice and clean. So that cuts even better. So that's kind of what a shear scrape is, and that's why it works so good to clean off irregularities or give you a really nice finish. And the way that works the best is to make a little T-pocket with your finger right here. Don't hold the gouge like this. Make a little pocket like that, and I choke up on a thing. I just want the tool slightly balanced. And you see what's coming off of here is this kind of stuff right there. So you're just getting really light little finish cuts and little thin fibers coming off of there, and that's kind of just a beautiful little finish. I'll spend, when I'm doing bowls or anything like that, I'll spend 20 minutes, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I'll spend 20 minutes shear scraping rather than spend 10 minutes sanding. I'd rather cut wood, and I enjoy shear scraping. I'd rather sit here watching the wood go roundy round than sitting there with a sander and sanding the lines out. I'll shear scrape it all out. I love just getting those little angel hair fibers off of there. It's all zen-like and stuff, and I get really relaxed and stuff. If I got to sand, I just don't like it. I've sanded furniture all my life, and I don't really care for it. None of us do. So just, you know, it's just a thought. It's my thought for the day. All right, I'm going to come in here just like I did before and start making a little bowl. Actually, I'm going to save that. That's a little sharper gouge. Go back to my little stubby. I'm going to leave the tailstock in just because right now it's not totally in my way. I mean, there's a little bit, but I can get down in the bowl, just safety reasons. I'm comfortable with the speed being up where it is. Go a little faster. As long as I got this in here, I'm really comfortable with it. So, and I got to get some weight out. But as far over as my hand is, my bevel is pointed way over there. My side of my bowl is here, my bevel's going that way. So I can't do that cut all the way out to the edge and basically parallel the edge. That's as far in as I can get on that gouge. So I can go to the 40. I don't go with like a 40, a 50, a 45. I got 40 and 60. I can do everything I do. I don't want to have a bunch of settings and change a bunch of stuff. Now, if I point my gouge in here, I can just about parallel the outside edge with my 40-degree gouge with the tailstock still in place. So I'm going to try it. No, not quite. I'm up against the... Yeah, it's not quite getting in there, but I'll get a little more weight out of here. I don't want to take too much because it's going to start moving on me and I'm going to mess up my edge. I want my edges to be consistent. So, okay, I'm just about right thickness there, but obviously I'm getting thicker. That's as tight as I can go. So I'm going to need to get some more, get this out of here. And I may be able to leave it on there.
You'll hit your elbow.
Yeah, I probably will. I hate to do it, but no big deal. Oh, who put this back in? That's why I was going to throw it away the first time. All right, we don't want to lose it, but still, it needs to be in at the other end. That's where it does the most good. All right, so quickly. All right, fine with that. Let's turn speed down still just a little bit, then I'll come back up. so. I'll line my bevel up. And I don't want to hit the wall with all of that wood, so I need to get more wood out of here. Not quite that fast. The little stubby ones are funny. So here again, just practice your good. Here's a whole another deal. Make every cut a finished cut. If you're actually just making cuts and hogging wood out, that's fine, but you're not learning anything. If Tiger Woods or anybody goes out and just hacks balls just to say he's hitting balls and doesn't practice technique, when he really needs to make a shot, he's not going to make the shot because your body has learned how to do everything incorrectly. So I was taught to make every cut a finished cut. If you want to rough out bowls, fine, rough them out. Make every cut a finished cut. When you finish with those bowls, if they're slick and smooth, perfect contours, perfect shapes, and you just want to use them just like that, they'll be good enough to use. So every cut, nice little finished cut. That's a little more aggressive than I like to go. Thanks. So for whatever reason, we've gotten out of balance. I'm picking up more vibration now than when I had all the wood in there. I'm hearing something. I don't know if it's just this thing bouncing around. Whoa, stay on the platform. But, all right, we're good there. We're good there. All right, must be just this thing making some noise. All right, we're a little bit thicker than I wanted. Let's see if we can make a cut in here. I can't see the outside edge. That's what I was trying to get the light on there. So every cut, nice and smooth. You don't need much hand support. I'm not showing off, I'm just kind of showing you. The backhand controls the cut. Al Hockenberry told me that he took classes with Al Sturt, and he had turned a whole bowl with one hand. You just need a little downward pressure on the rest to control it. Slide it back, pick up a cut. Sweet spot of the wood, flute about 45 degrees open. Now I can start removing more of the wood on the inside. I can look down, I can see my thickness. That's a little heavy cut, but I've got a good flow going, so I'm going to take that down a little bit. Pick up another one. This gouge is actually holding up pretty good. If I can do that and still not get vibration, the gouge is cutting pretty good. If I've got to take my hand off and I got to really tighten up, and it's probably getting dull. Well, let's see how even we are if we got transition in here. Yeah, I do have a transition there, and I can't go back and fix that. Actually, it moved on me. This side's perfect. This side has moved out, and I've got a transition line there, and that's perfectly smooth on that side. So I doubt we can fix that.
It's going to fly.
Yeah. I don't think it's possible, but I never back down from a good challenge. I got a fresh burr on here. We're going to see what happens. Stand back, Mike. don't know if anybody wants to try that with a regular scraper or not, but didn't quite get it out. It's better, but it's not coming out. So, nope, it's moved too much, so we'll just have to finish the bowl out. I need to take just a little bit more out here to even the thickness up, and if it hasn't moved enough to where I'm leaving another transition in, so I'm going to find my bevel right there. See what we got. Pretty smooth. I'm still a little bit thicker right there. I can't hardly reach it with this thing. So let's try this one. I don't know if I got much edge left on this. We'll try to pick it up right here. Much sharper gouge, a little bit better edge on that one. I cannot pick up those fine cuts with a dull gouge. That just, so that's much smoother, much cleaner, and I've got a little bit thin there, but see, it moved on me when I chucked it up or something. I think what happens when I had the tailstock in there, it was holding it a little bit crooked because it hasn't moved out of the chuck jaws, but that's what happens to try to get, and it may have been that I didn't true up the outside. I trued it up here, but I didn't come all the way up with that little bit of bump that I had. So true up the outside just like the wing bowl. And that is the way we do it. We're going to take the bottom. We're not done. We're going to take the bottom and clean it up. And we'll use little Mr. Rubber Chucky. Like the rubber ducky. I got an index. I just true these up. When you get these, they may not run true because they're just molded by hand. So you have to true them up. All right, same deal. Let's see what we got. That base is looking really big for this bowl, so we're going to try to maybe make that smaller.
You don't bother with leather?
What's that?
You're not going to bother with leather pack?
No, with the rubber, I don't need it. I use the leather with the wood, my chucks that I do. So with this thing, it goes right into the bowl. It doesn't mar or anything. So, and actually, you see the tenon's big enough. I can probably use the tenon as my foot. Pretty good. Not bad, not great. Turn the speed down. Still bouncing around a little bit. We'll try it. I'm going to move the little live center. It's kind of a random. That's worse. Yeah, we'll call that good. It's not perfect, but I need to get going. All right, so number 4, fairly sharp one. Speed it up. So I didn't like this foot. It's a little big, so let's go with a smaller foot. We'll include the tenon. And I just need to remember where my bottom of the bowl is. I want to get a little bit deeper curve. For the feet I had and I'll clean that up, hopefully not touch the part that is real perfectly smooth. And that's good on that. I'll take my spindle gouge do a little back cut just to clean this up and clean this edge just a hair. Could sand it off. I don't want to get a skate on this, and I'm a little worried about it, so I just put that little edge in there. Now I've kind of made my little undercut. And this is where, if I'm doing feet, I will just keep digging out farther and farther, and hopefully don't get a catch. So I'm doing a little scrape on the side. I can get it a little tighter in there. And then I can go in this way, dig a little deeper. I might dig myself in a big old problematic hole here, but I can't hardly see in there right now, but it can get a little wacky and start being out of balance in there. So are we holding our breath? You guys, I should have looked up because I knew you guys would be sweating it. I knew you guys would be sweating it. All right. Can you see? Can the camera actually see in there? Yeah, it's not bad. All right. Okay, that's pretty good. I can thin out a little more and get in there a little tighter, but we'll call that about as deep as I'm going to go now because I don't want to get everybody, all the ladies, nervous here and everything. What's that?
Don't worry about that.
And a little gouge. What time is it? I'm running a little off schedule. And that digs that out, and you can carve feet out. Yeah, it's a little, you're about maybe a ½ inch thick in there. I could go a little deeper if you try. I'm going to come up with a little better system to do that. Sorry I got that little out of whack there. But anyway, that's it. Twice turned, in grain, side grain, whatever you want to call it. Thank you guys.